This call is being recorded. If you do not wish to be recorded, please disconnect at this time.
Okay, great. Welcome to Study Week 2, Day 1 conference call, and today's category is stubborn behavior in relationships, how we use it to hold ourselves in place. I'm going to give an example that will probably be really clear to a lot of people that have this behavior. And for instance, I'm in a relationship, and my partner and I have had a habit of being a certain way. And I've noticed lately that my partner is doing things differently, and I just keep observing it. And I'm starting to feel either left out or not cared for or not necessarily a priority in their lives. But I'm not saying anything. I'm just watching them keep doing these things that they're doing. And this could be in relationship to they're overworking, or maybe they're coming to bed late, or they're no longer doing the little nice things around the house that they used to do. It can be anything that I'm used to them doing, and then I'm watching them not do it. And what'll happen for most of us is we'll keep watching, and then we'll start to build this resentment and like this barrier, and it's almost a challenge to them to keep doing the things that they're doing. And what that does is we're telepathically engaging them, even if we're not doing it on purpose, and we're watching them fail us. And that's the feeling we're having, that in some way they're failing us, or in some ways maybe we feel that we're not worthy and we don't deserve their attention, or we don't deserve these nice treatments anymore. But again, we're not saying anything, we're just watching. And this is how we hold ourselves in place. In the moment of the discomfort, it's okay to observe a little longer if you want, but when you realize it's continuing, the same pattern, and you're just observing and starting to feel worse and worse, that's the moment that we are supposed to say something. We don't even necessarily have to say something to the other person. What we can do is we can say to ourselves, okay, I'm indulging in this pattern by doing nothing. I want another experience, but all I'm doing is watching. So it's a necessary step, because we're the only things we control in our existence, to then do something different instead of waiting for them to change or be the way they were before. Does anyone relate to this concept or this experience?
I do.
Yes, great example.
And it's something that we do. I believe we see it in like movies and TV shows, and I think part of that's part of the social programming is it leads to drama in a show or some comedic happening later. But in real life, it just leads to stagnation. So the issue then becomes, how am I going to create change in this moment? And that goes back to what we started week 1 with, which is whenever we feel discomfort, there's something we want to know. So again, in that moment, we need to stop and look at, okay, what am I doing to support this? And I'm going to give you this very, very personal experience, because I didn't realize this is what I was doing. But when it comes to personal intimacy, I'm not necessarily one to speak up. And in a relationship, it tends to be something that's very common for me, because I am very touchy-feely and I'm very close to my partner. And so a physical relationship is basically an everyday thing for me on one level or another. And then when my partner gets too busy and that stops, I start thinking, oh, what's going on in their life? Why are they behaving this way? Do I have the right then to interrupt whatever they're doing? So I'm trying to be considerate at first. This is how the pattern normally starts for me. I'm trying to be considerate, and I'm thinking, okay, well, they're busy, or, you know, they're doing their own thing right now, and I need to give them some space. But I don't say, oh, honey, I was expecting this behavior, and what's going on? So I watch myself. I watch myself not saying anything, and that's the first clue. Whenever I find myself not saying anything, I'm already starting the pattern in me of watching them and waiting for them to prove to me that I'm right. And it's not like I want to be mad at them or anything. It's just how we allow others to prove to us the situation instead of us creating the situation that we want. because it looks like in that moment that I'm not going to have physical affection in one way or another. I mean, even if it's just cuddling, watching a movie, laying together as we go to sleep instead of just coming to bed exhausted and passing out. I mean, any of these little things, if I don't speak up, I'm offering my approval of a situation, because we teach others how we want to be treated. And if we wait too long, so this is something that you might notice too in your behavior. If we wait too long to say anything, we tend to say it from a place of aggression, disappointment, ill feeling, and then our partner then is like taken off guard, like, oh, I failed you. So now we have two experiences of failure in the same process. Everything comes from love. We all care about each other. None of us really want to have this experience in this negative way, but our focus and our attention has been taken away from the fact that we have creation in our experience. So in this moment, again, we're watching ourselves, watch the other person fail us, and then finally we get to a point that we can't take it anymore, and they say something to us like, oh, hey, could you do this for me? And you're like, no, because I'm not getting what I want, and I'm let down, and I'm disappointed. So we're using that opportunity of them opening up in a moment where they think everything's fine, and we're jumping on them aggressively or impatiently, or you could be taking the other cold shoulder thing where I'm not doing anything for you because you're not doing anything for me, and that's another way some people experience it. Again, in any of these moments, the goal is to slow down, to pay attention to what's happening, and to then begin the recreation of what we actually want to happen. And we have an exercise tied to today's call. It's called Change Perception. And there's more in there in details to help you work through the process.
Hi, Christine. This is Laura.
Hi, Laura.
I just wanted to share my experience of the opposite of that.
Okay.
My husband expects a lot from me, and I don't even know that he's expecting it of me, and I'm not meeting his needs, and I don't even know it. And then all of a sudden, I'm in trouble.
Yes, that's an excellent share, because when you're on the opposite side of it, not the person doing the stubborn behavior, but being in a relationship with somebody who has that stubborn behavior, when this happens, we tend to take it personally. Again, oh, I failed them, and I didn't even know. How do I quickly fix this situation because I love them? I don't want them to be in pain. And that can be very difficult in that moment because, again, by the time your husband has said anything, he's already been holding this to the point that he can't handle it anymore. Is that right, Laura?
Yes, that's right. He's already bottled it all up, and he's
Right.
already had it.
Right. So on either side of the equation, by the time the person expresses their discomfort, they've waited so long that they can't do it in a place of balance. Oh,
sorry.
No, go
I
ahead.
just wanted to say my old habit before I got into all of this was to take responsibility for his anger. Until
Right.
I realized that it's really not. It's him that didn't speak up.
Correct. So we need to learn in our relationships, too, the level of responsibility that is actually ours. And we'll talk about that later on in more detail, but that's what she's referring to is what are we actually responsible for in our experiences. We cannot control anyone else. So when they have a reaction to us, we can't solve their problem. We can be compassionate. We can be patient. We can be kind, which is the best result. And on occasions that we don't have the best result, where we feel hurt, where we feel overwhelmed, that's about us. They're not responsible for our reaction to their implosion. Because what happens is the energetic process of what's going on is we normally share energy between two people. And when we're not being stubborn, that energy is being shared. And as soon as we become stubborn, the rate at which we express outwardly pulses of energy slows down. And the more stubborn we become, the more that shuts down. And here's the other thing that we will do is somebody will say to you, are you okay? And you'll say yes. And it's not true. I mean, that is the perfect opportunity when somebody says, are you okay? To say, well, I've been watching this and I feel uncomfortable, and explain what it is you're uncomfortable about. But a lot of times we may not even know yet what we're uncomfortable about. But to say that we're okay is not the truth either. So it's important to build vocabulary between you and the person you're in a relationship with. And again, this could be a friend at work. This could be a classmate. It doesn't have to be your intimate partner. But if you don't build vocabulary, if you don't build a way to let them know that, well, I don't know what, something's not right, but I'm not really sure what it is. I can't put my finger on it. If you don't have something to say, and you just say, oh, no, I'm fine, or it's not important, anything that dismisses the experience instead of communicating it is one of those things that takes away. And Michelle, I'm not really sure how to explain this. Michelle wrote, it reminds me of the need for I messages instead of you messages. Are you unmuted, Michelle?
Yeah, I can say something to that. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Yes, okay. Yeah, I mean, I was always a good example for this bottling up or other people bottling up, and I was always very frustrated until I was at a workshop and I was introduced to this concept of sending iMessages instead of exploding and saying, you do this to me, you do that to me, to say, well, what I'm experiencing right now feels like this to me. And of course, I mean, it's very common, this concept. But I have really tried to practice that. I don't know if I'm 100%, but I think very frequently I think of it and I will use it to say something, and then it really doesn't have that wounding thing to the other person.
Right. That's perfect. Yes. And that if we tie that into what Laura already said about when her husband comes to her and says and explodes and has this breakdown, if he could say, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling unloved, then she could say, oh, I didn't know that, versus you don't love me, you don't share. And then she would feel attacked. So that is excellent. And that's what I agree with that 100%, and I do try to do that as well, because in the moment, I'm going to speak up as soon as I can. As soon as I know there's a discomfort, I'm going to speak up and I'm going to say to my partner, okay, I'm not really sure why I feel this way if I haven't figured it out yet, but I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. And if anything comes to you, let me know if you might know. Or I might say to them, I'm seeing in you this habit now of overworking, and I was just wondering how you're doing. And so again, opening the conversation to give them an opportunity to share. And I know in Laura's, no, I was just
we have the same agreement. Yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
No, you go ahead if you like.
I was just going to say that my husband and I established the exact same agreement where if we're starting to feel anything that gets out of balance, then we talk about it immediately, or we at least mention it, because like there will be days that, you know, we're hormonal people sometimes, and I'll be like, I don't want to talk to anyone. If I talk to you, it's not going to come out the right way. I just need to handle my hormones today. So there's that kind of clear communication, but then there's also the clear communication that, you know, things will be going great, and then all of a sudden there's this hint of something that comes up, and then we will communicate it now.
Awesome.
So open communication is extremely important. So go ahead and say what you were going to say.
No, that ties into this, so I can even expand on what you said even more, where my partner will come in and he'll see something on my face, and he'll make an assumption of what it means, and then he's responding to me based on his assumption. So for instance, when I'm really focused, I'm not a smiley person. I'm only smiley when I'm relaxed and I'm more in my truth. So if I focus on, okay, I've got to get the dishes done, I've got to make sure dinner's ready in time for the kids, I'm posting stuff for the study, and then the grocery shopping, and I'm distracted in this way with all of these task-oriented things, then when he sees something on my face, he assumes that I'm upset. But all I am is focused. And so even now, when he comes home and he's tired and he's worn out, this is when this will happen. When he's on a good day, this never happens. But on his bad days, he is triggered by that look on my face, and he forgets that all it means is I am worn out, or I am busy, or I'm focused. And he assumes it means I am disappointed, and I'm happy. He's failed me in some way. So he automatically goes to his list of things that he wants to do for me that is left undone. And then basically he starts to feel attacked when I've done nothing. So in these moments, we learn to, we on the inside of us, when we recognize that the other person is doing something like this, our job then again is to point out, hey, you're doing this. If I don't notice he's doing it, and then I start feeling attacked, I can stop again right there. This doesn't feel like the relationship I have. I feel attacked. What's going on that you think there's a problem? And he'll say, well, you're upset. And I'll be like, nope, that's not me. And we'll have a small conversation. So we can stop at any point of the process. We can stop. Now, when it gets extensive, I don't know if maybe you guys don't have this experience, but in the past, my partner and I would have these knockdown, drag-out, scream, I can't believe this is going on, our relationship should end kind of conversations. And we, at the end of it, we'd be like, and I'm done with you, and I'm done with you, and our relationship is over, and there's no chance I'm going to do this for a minute longer. And then we have a chance to have an agreement, which is the one that we have. We have a, okay, this didn't go at all the way it should have went. I'm not enjoying this experience, and I want to do over. And it's not something we do often, and maybe happens maybe once a year. But that's something we have in place, that if one of us says a do-over, then we just back up out of all of those hurt feelings, and we ball them up and we throw it away. It doesn't exist. That fight never happened. And we have a chance to start over, and we say, oh, I love you. I love you too. How are we going to express love for each other? And do we need to revisit this, or was that just an explosion of misunderstandings that got out of hand? And so there's ways and things that we can put in place that go to the extreme, because there will be days where both parties in a relationship are having a bad time, and they're going to need this space to be able to recover from this bad time versus, oh no, you treated me that way, and I'm holding you responsible for it. And that goes back to what Michelle was saying about starting with the I messages instead of the you messages. You know, what am I responsible for? What do I think? If I think you're responsible for something, I need to look at my life and why am I putting that responsibility on you? I mean, the only thing I control or change is me.
And about this bad time, you know, you might wonder why, you know, everybody on this spiritual path, we should all be happy and loving. It doesn't really work that way, especially with all the shifts in the world that are going on. And if you're really sensitive, then you pick up these things, and it can make things very difficult. You know, being an empath, being sensitive, and picking up things from people around you.
Right. That's another important point, that when you're having these experiences, so if I wake up and I'm feeling cranky, and I'm waking up this way, well, that's not normal. That's not the me I know. So I have a responsibility to take my energy from the inside out and get it to the level of experience I want before I even start my day. That's my responsibility to myself. Otherwise, I've been impacted by others while I'm sleeping because I'm dreaming with them. We are interacting on an etheric level. And there's so much, like Laura said, that's in the environment that can change us because we're these loving, compassionate, giving people, and we take on this energy to support others, but we don't necessarily realize that's happened. So every moment of discomfort is our awareness that, oh, I've done something. What is it? What has happened to me, and how do I undo this experience in a way that will feel better? And this really deep insight came to me when I was driving in the car. Joel, he's basically a stepson for me, and he said to me, Chris, what's going on? You're not happy. And I said, what do you mean? He says, well, you're not smiling. And that's when I realized I was stressed. I was thinking about everything I had to get done that day. And it was taking me through these habitual patterns that I'd seen in my mother. It's not truly who I am. So even now, when these things happen, when I'm in that place, I like for somebody to point that out, because I don't know that I've gotten there, because they're so deeply ingrained from the moment of my birth, from the experience with my family, that these are things that take a while to work out of our system. So I can have a great week and not have any of those moments, but then suddenly, with the pressure of everything external and the resonance between me and a crowd of people, I can fall into this feeling of, overwhelmed, underappreciated, not knowing what to do next. And in that moment when Joel said, "You're always happy. Why aren't you happy?" And I realized that I was doing this to myself. It wasn't that I could just suddenly be happy by realizing it. I had to really fight to bring that energy back into my system, to tie into who I am, to push out the overwhelming resonance until I was holding the capacity of being me again. And that's a critical point to understand in any of these relationships. When we feel this stubbornness, when we feel unappreciated, or we think the other person doesn't want to give us what we want, because everything comes from love. And I can promise you, people want us to have what we want, but we're holding each other in place by our own energy, our own patterns, our own thoughts. And to make that change, once you get it under control, once you realize you can make the change, you will see everything around you change as well. It's a constant proof how energy works, that when we get to the level of energetic balance that we want, that our lives support that moment. It's not that we're going to get there and suddenly still be victimized and held down. That it just can't exist that way. So it's a freedom that I know we're all trying to get to, and that I live it most of my life now. And it's my pleasure to share with you guys this information so that you can get to this point as well. Any questions? Okay, so we have one exercise. Oh, wait, was that somebody?
I would like to comment something. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have one comment to that, and that would be, since, usually spiritual people love to give and to give and to give. And in these moments, when I'm still in the process, when I'm really in the thick of it and I haven't come out of it yet, I consider it a gift that I give my partner when I say to him, you know what, I'm having a real bad day, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, instead of not saying anything and, just being silent or not. I mean, in other words,
Right.
I
The
think
communication is
it's
your gift.
something that I want to give to a partner, to disclose what I'm going through, so that because the usual human reaction is that the partner will feel bad when I feel bad, because he thinks he has done something to me and I'm not just not saying it. So if I prevent that by telling him, you know what, I have a headache today, or you know what, I'm really feeling this and that, then it's a real gift I can give to him, because he will not feel guilt.
Nice. Right. Good point as well. And in that moment, because we are compassionate and overgiving, we do mirror the people around us. And the joy is that they can pull us out. We can choose to mirror their joy versus our uncomfortableness, our sadness. Or we can say, hey, I need to stay here for a while because I really want to dig into this feeling and I want to know what it is. I have to move through it and not just jump over it. Because again, we're trying to tell ourselves something. So any of these reoccurring experiences of this uncomfortable feeling, each time the same feeling reoccurs, it's important to take a look at why is it reoccurring. If something happens just once, we can chalk it up to resonance. But when it's happening 2 and 3 and 4 times, it's time to slow down and take a look at, what is it we're creating. And then we also have the other side again where, like you said, he assumes that he's responsible. We need to, as individuals, know that we are not responsible for anyone else's experience, because another person who is in the same room with us will have a completely different experience with us than the person who we think we're responsible for, which shows we're all individuals responsible for our own experiences. Being compassionate and loving and caring and interacting is something we like to do. So when we take on somebody's sadness, like you said your husband can do, we need to recognize, oh, you've just joined me. Let me just tell you, hey, I'm not actually glad to be here, so you don't have to join me. And I've done that with my partner too, where he's having a low day and he comes in and I feel myself drop and I'm like, oh, that wasn't me. I was just fine and now he's here and I'm not fine. So I can just let that go because it's not mine. You know, learning to know what is ours and what is somebody else's, especially when we take the empathic process into consideration, is critical to our well-being and our good health. So thank you guys so much for everything you brought up today. These were all good points. And I will, let's see, on the call there was a couple of concepts that came in that I'll add notes for underneath, so you can look back at the replay later and check out those notes if you want, because they'll be referencing some other exercises that you can take a look at if you're interested. And if there's nothing else, then we will end the call.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, bye.
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 Thank you. Bye-bye.
Now I'm all alone. Thanks, guys. I just make sure everybody was off the top before I go. Have a great day, everyone. Love and light.
This call has been recorded.